Whatever was outside that tent terrified them more than dying inside it. Their clothes were radioactive. 2 of them had ties to a Soviet nuclear disaster. This slope was quietly closed to hikers for years afterward. The same night, witnesses 50 kilometers away saw this. The government's answer? Files sealed. Case closed. This is the Dyatlov Pass Incident. 60 years later, we still don't know why. January 23, 1959. 10 students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute set out on a skiing expedition led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov. Their goal? Reach Otorten Mountain, a grueling multi-day trek through one of the most remote parts of the Soviet Union, deep in winter. One member, Yuri Yudin, turned back early after several days. Altitude sickness, joint pain. He had no idea that decision would save his life. The remaining 9, 7 men, 2 women, pushed on. Here's what makes this case different from most old mysteries. We don't just have their route. We have their own photographs. Up until the very end. Campfires, laughter, snow-covered slopes. A group that looks, in every image, completely unaware of what was coming. The last known photo was taken as they began setting up camp on the slope of a mountain the local Mansi people called Kholat Syakhl. Translated, it means dead mountain. The group was expected to send a telegram once they reached the village of Vizay, confirming they'd finished the trek safely. That telegram never came. At first, nobody panicked. Delays happened, routes shifted. But as days passed with no word, search parties were finally organized. On February 20th, searchers set out into the mountains to find them. On February 26th, a search party found the tent, half collapsed under snow on the slope of Dead Mountain. Inside, their boots, their coats, their food mid-preparation. Everything a person would need to survive a Ural winter night left behind. The tent's entrance flap was still fastened shut. Instead, forensic examiners later confirmed the group had cut their way out through the tent wall itself, from the inside. Footprints, some in bare feet, led away from the tent, down the slope, toward a tree line over a kilometer away. 2 bodies were found first, near a large cedar tree at the forest's edge, partially clothed, with evidence of a struggle to build a small fire. Branches were broken high on the tree, as if someone had climbed it, perhaps to see something, or to escape something. 3 more were found scattered between the cedar and the tent, their body positions suggesting they'd tried to make it back to shelter and hadn't made it. The final 4 weren't found until May, over 2 months later, buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine deeper in the woods. They were dressed in clothing stripped from the bodies of the ones who died first, and their injuries were worse. 6 of the 9 died of hypothermia. That part isn't in question. But 3 had traumatic injuries with no external wounds to explain them. 1 with major skull damage, 2 with severe chest fractures, the kind of blunt force trauma you'd expect from a car crash, not a mountainside. One working theory for the mass barefoot exodus: hypothermia can cause paradoxical undressing, a late-stage response where the body, in extreme cold, floods with heat and convinces the mind it's warm, leading victims to tear off their own clothing shortly before death. You already know their clothing tested radioactive. Here's the fuller picture. 2 members of the group had prior connections to Kyshtym, the site of a major Soviet nuclear accident 2 years earlier. One had lived in the contaminated zone. Another had helped with the cleanup. A mundane explanation for an eerie detail. Less easily explained, when the final 4 bodies were recovered, 1 was missing her tongue. 2 were missing their eyes. Decomposition in running water can account for some of this, but not everyone investigating the case has been convinced that's the whole story. And you already know about the lights witnesses saw that same night, 50 kilometers south. What you may not know is those reports came from a completely separate hiking group with no connection to the Dyatlov team, ruling out any shared hallucination or panic explanation. The original 1959 investigation closed within months, with a vague official ruling. The hikers died from a compelling natural force. The files were sealed. No one was ever charged. No clear cause was given. The case stayed formally unsolved for 6 decades, until 2019, when Russian authorities reopened it, examining only 3 possible natural explanations: an avalanche, a slab avalanche, or extreme winds. A crime was formally ruled out. Then, in January 2021, engineers Alexander Puzarin and Johann Gaum published a peer-reviewed study proposing a specific mechanism, a rare small slab avalanche, one that wouldn't leave obvious debris, but could still deliver the kind of blunt force trauma seen in the bodies. Follow-up expeditions to the site in the following years found physical evidence that avalanches do, in fact, occur on that exact slope. It's the most scientifically rigorous explanation to date. Even its own authors are careful about how far to take it. They've called it plausible, not proven. A slab avalanche might explain the injuries. It might even explain why 9 experienced hikers would panic and flee. But it doesn't fully explain everything found in that ravine. It doesn't explain the missing tongue. It doesn't explain the orange lights. Over 60 years later, the tent is still cut open, from the inside. If you want to see the next case history can't fully close, subscribe. This is far from the last one we're covering.